In the modern gaming world, remakes and sequels have become a dominant trend, sparking heated debates among fans. On one hand, gamers often criticize the lack of original ideas, accusing game developers of taking the easy route by revisiting old titles. Yet, when their favorite game gets a polished remake, many of these same critics are quick to embrace it. This paradox highlights an interesting aspect of gamer culture, the tendency to reject remakes in theory, but celebrate them when executed well. The appeal of nostalgia and familiarity. Gaming fans may lament the flood of remakes, but nostalgia and familiarity are powerful forces. Many beloved franchises, like Resident Evil and Final Fantasy, have stood the test of time precisely because they evoke cherished memories for longtime players. When remakes of these games are done right, offering both a faithful recreation and modern enhancements, fans often find themselves thrilled by the experience. The success of remakes like Resident Evil 4 and Final Fantasy VII Remake exemplifies this trend. Initially met with skepticism, these games quickly won over fans and critics alike with their high-quality gameplay, updated graphics, and new mechanics that elevated them beyond simple rehashes. Gamers who may have initially frowned upon the idea of a remake were ultimately won over, solidifying the appeal of remaking iconic titles. 1980s and 1990s, an era of innovation. In contrast, gaming in the 1980s and early 1990s was defined by a spirit of innovation. With the rise of arcades and later home consoles, developers constantly experimented with new ideas. Classic genres like fighting games and platformers emerged from this experimental phase, and players were spoiled with a wide variety of games that each felt unique. While some franchises, such as Mario and Sonic, gained enormous popularity, sequels and remakes were rare in the early days of gaming. Every experience seemed fresh, and players had the opportunity to engage with countless original titles in the arcade or on their early home consoles. This Wild West period of gaming fostered a culture of exploration and discovery. The rise of remakes, practical or cash grab. As the gaming industry evolved, remakes became more common, especially with the advent of more powerful consoles that could dramatically improve the visuals and mechanics of older games. However, not all remakes were created equal. Some remakes, particularly in the early days of home consoles, were lackluster ports of arcade games, often featuring clunky controls and downgraded graphics. These types of remakes left many fans feeling underwhelmed. In modern gaming, the line between a passion project and a cash grab can be blurry. When enough time has passed since the original release, a well-executed remake can feel justified, as with Resident Evil 4 or the upcoming Legacy of Kain remaster. These games benefit from visual and mechanical overhauls, appealing to both nostalgic fans and new players. However, some remakes are criticized for being unnecessary or released too soon. The Last of Us, for example, was remastered for PlayStation 4 barely a year after its initial release on PlayStation 3. While this made sense from a business standpoint, the remake was viewed by many as an obvious cash grab. Fans argued that backward compatibility could have been implemented instead, leaving the remaster feeling like a shallow way to profit off an already successful game. A future dominated by remakes? Despite the criticism, the gaming industry seems to be leaning more and more into remakes. With massive titles like Final Fantasy VII Remake setting a new standard, it's likely that this trend will continue to shape the future of gaming. Fans eagerly await the second part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy, and while Square Enix has expressed some dissatisfaction with sales figures, the fanbase remains devoted to the new iterations of these beloved games. This has led to a growing concern that the gaming landscape will become saturated with remakes and sequels, limiting the space for new and innovative ideas. Indie games and original titles still make their mark, but they often struggle to garner the same attention as the big-name franchises. The audience's reluctance to support new ideas can reinforce the industry's reliance on tried-and-true concepts, creating a cycle where remakes become the safer, more profitable option. On the flip side, supporters of remakes argue that these games provide some of the best experiences of a console generation. When executed well, a remake can revitalize a classic game, introduce it to a new audience, and improve upon the original in meaningful ways. Ultimately, it comes down to the quality of the remake, whether it feels like a thoughtful homage to the original or a rushed effort to capitalize on nostalgia. Conclusion. While the debate around remakes in gaming is ongoing, it's clear that players are divided on the issue. Many criticize the abundance of remakes and long for more original content, yet when their favorite game is given the remake treatment, they often can't resist revisiting it. As remakes become an increasingly dominant force in the industry, the challenge for developers will be to balance fan expectations with creativity, ensuring that new ideas continue to thrive alongside the nostalgia-fueled success of beloved classics.